The Event Center plebiscite issue goes before City Council. Thunder Bay's new consolidated courthouse opens its doors. And Quebec voters go to the polls. Good evening and thank you for being with us tonight. The debate over whether or not to hold a plebiscite on the Event Center will be waged at City Council tonight. And a pair of rallies, both for and against, are currently underway outside of Thunder Bay City Hall. The concerned taxpayers of Thunder Bay are calling for a plebiscite in the October municipal election. They say the city can't afford the $106 million project and they want voters to have a say. But another group, the Citizens for a Waterfront Event Center, are also making their voices heard outside of City Hall. Councillor Linda Ridholm is bringing forward a ballot box question for Council to debate tonight. That question would ask voters if they're in favor of the city continuing with the process to build the proposed event center. However, some on Council have already said they will not support the motion. Our Dennis Ward is at City Hall. He'll have a full report for you tonight on the Late Edition.
Well, Thunder Bay's new consolidated courthouse opened its doors for the first time today. The 6-story building at the corner of Miles and Brody Streets took 3 years to construct with a total contract price tag of $247 million. And despite a few glitches, the first court cases were heard this morning. Phil Darlington was in attendance and has this report.
The Superior Court of Justice was in session inside some of the 15 brand new courtrooms. District Crown Attorney Dan Mitchell says his new surroundings should be far superior to the old ones.
The courtrooms they're many, they're spacious, they're high tech. There are so many advantages to this building that we just simply didn't have in the old facilities.
New technology is one of the many improvements designed into the new building. Local defense lawyer George Joseph says they're happy to be in the new building, but he doesn't think many of the lawyers will need to move their law offices to the surrounding area.
I think there used to be a time where proximity to the courthouse really facilitated the practice, but I think now with electronic filing, I don't think it matters as much anymore. I know there are a few lawyers that have moved, but I don't see a big flood of it.
Having now spoken to a few of the lawyers and other staff members, the general consensus seems to be that this building is a lot nicer than the old courthouse. However, there are still a few touch-ups and things to get bolted down before this building is 100% complete.
There are little bugs. For example, my the front door fell off of my office this morning. Well, it didn't fall off. It became disconnected, and they're working on fixing that.
One of the many improvements, although simple, is the addition of padding on the seats in the courtroom, which lawyers say is a much-needed upgrade from the old courthouse. Staff from the Ontario Court of Justice on Arthur Street will continue working in the old building until Friday, and then relocate to the new courthouse on the weekend. Phil Darlington, TBT News.
Meanwhile, the first homicide case to be heard at the new courthouse had to be put on hold today due to problems obtaining a necessary report and problems with the courthouse itself. 30-year-old Jeffrey Charles Tomagatic is charged in the death of 50-year-old Murray Kiesick. The fatal altercation took place on North Syndicate Avenue in September 2012. The hearing was supposed to begin at 10 o'clock this morning. The court had to go into recess for half an hour as the new courthouse building experienced some technical difficulties. The biggest problem was that the elevator, which brings up the accused, wasn't functioning.
Well, as you know, there were some technical difficulties at the beginning. I expected that to happen in the first few days, but once it worked seamlessly.
Now, when court resumed, Joseph took issue with the fact that there was not a GLADU report for his client. That report gives consideration to the background of a First Nations offender before a sentence is given. Assistant Crown Attorney Deb Kinsella asked for the hearing to proceed, saying the missing information from that report could be obtained through other means. But Justice Helen Pierce ruled in favor of the adjournment, saying it was unfair to proceed without the full report. She also apologized to victims' family members for making the journey to Thunder Bay for today's hearing. A new date has now been scheduled for July 2nd.
Well, Thunder Bay has a perfect snow melt underway according to the Lakehead Region Conservation Authority. Flood watches and flood warnings were issued across southern Ontario yesterday, but the chair of the LRCA says there is no reason to be concerned about local flooding at this point. The warmer temperatures over the weekend are expected to continue throughout the week. That's knocking down some of those big snowbanks. But Bill Bartley says the breakup on the river system is still going to take some time. Bartley feels Mother Nature is doing exactly as hoped.
It's going to be nice and warm during the day, so the snow will go down, but it's cool at night, which will stiffen up the snow, so we'll slow it down a bit. And if we have some more foggy mornings, that eats up the snow pretty quickly too.
The LRCA will continue to keep an eye on the melting snow.
Thunder Bay Fire Rescue is focusing on local retirement homes and care facilities to improve their fire safety plans. New legislation came into effect last month, which places additional responsibility on the owners of such facilities. And while many of the city's care centers are in compliance, there are other parts of it, though, that need to be addressed. Brian Bonasso explains.
When you think of fire safety, this may be all that comes to mind. But as of January of this year, retirement centers and care facilities across the province are also required to have an approved fire safety plan in place, and staff must be properly trained to execute that plan. Yearly fire drills must also be carried out under the approval of the chief fire official. As of yet, nobody has been fined, according to Fire Chief John Hay, but that doesn't mean the facilities are all in complete compliance with the new laws.
We'll issue orders first before fines, and those orders will be time-weighted, and they'll give the opportunity for the facility to correct the deficiencies that are there. Our goal is not to charge people. Our goal is to get code compliance.
Some centers may need additional staff on site, even at night during slow periods. Hay anticipates some owners may take issue with that.
Costs are in labor, so when facilities have staffing issues, that's the first place they look, or cost issues, that's the first place they look. So we're going to have to identify what the minimum staffing would be for proper evacuation.
But the new regulations weren't put in place to put added pressure on the care centers, says Hay, and they aren't to be taken lightly.
They're a result of people that perished and lost their lives in fires in care facilities that only met the code of the day.
The goal is to minimize the occurrence of such tragic events moving forward. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
The NDP critic for Children and Youth Services met with members of the child care community today. Monique Taylor was listening to concerns about child care issues that she says haven't been addressed sufficiently at both the local and provincial levels. Some of the major issues that were brought up at today's board meeting was long-term funding for services, increased demand for child care services, and the growing wait list, which is currently standing at 500. Taylor says they are currently trying to figure out a way to best move this forward with this crisis for the people of Northern Ontario.
Well, I think we definitely need to look at the funding model. We have to look at the wait list as they're sitting. There's so many factors to look at, but I'm of course not in any position to be putting a platform out and saying that this is the way the NDP is going. My job here today is to make sure that I'm listening, that I'm being informed of what's happening here in Thunder Bay, and that I'm taking that back to my leader and to our caucus.
It's obviously much better for the clients to deal with issues earlier on before they suffer more and before the issues become more significant. A number of years ago, the ministry direction was such that there were fewer resources put into public education and prevention, and I think we're starting to see the impact of that.
Taylor says it's necessary to put prevention first, early intervention in place so that families and children are able to move throughout life smoother with better tools.
The Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce held its 20th Annual Business Awards this past weekend to recognize the hard work and accomplishment of local businesses. Over 60 firms were nominated in 13 categories. Among the winners, the Small Business Excellence Award went to Primary Photo Source, the Medium Business Award went to the team at Fire Dog Communications, and the Large Business Award went to Gillen's Insurance. The New Business Excellence Award went to Eat Local Pizza and Pastry, and last but not least, the Customer Service Award went to Sweet Escape Cake Cafe and Bakery. Chamber President Charla Robinson says the event is a great way to showcase the progress that local businesses are making.
every day you kind of get into the day-by-day monotony, and sometimes you forget to look up and think about how far we've come, and that's exactly what this night is about. It's an opportunity to really sit back and look at all the great things that are happening in our city, all the great businesses that are operating in our community and growing and providing employment and economic development for the community. It's just a wonderful night to really celebrate some of the great happenings in the community.
Confederation College also took home the Strategic Leadership in Diversity Award.
Well, the Thunder Bay Art Gallery is hosting a new fundraiser on Friday night. It's called the Art and Ambience Art Auction and will feature live and silent bidding for some local masterpieces. There'll be over 40 donated works of art from Northwestern Ontario artists. Local artist Trudy Jameson donated this handmade vase to the art gallery. She says she has been donating her artwork for many years and says it's important for her because it helps influence her own work.
Sometimes when you see a show, you see what the other artist has done, it gets into your brain, it percolates around, and sometimes years later, you'll remember that and it will trigger something new in your own work. So it's just important to see what other people are doing.
40 artists and crafters from Thunder Bay and the region as well will be providing us with donated artwork, and it will be just about everything you could imagine in terms of an artistic medium, from sculpture to painting to photography to glass work.
McKay says they are hoping to raise around $10,000 at the art auction this Friday night. All proceeds will go towards supporting the Thunder Bay Art Gallery's exhibition and education programs. Tickets are limited and are on sale for